The movie begins in 1999 with a pilot named Petty who enters a shop of toys and antiques. Petty wanted to return a monkey toy that he had previously bought for his children from that shop. The shop owner was surprised by his appearance and asked him about his clothes, which were covered in blood. Petty then explained that the toy was the reason because whenever the monkey beat the drum, someone would die in a horrific way. While they were talking, they were shocked to see the monkey start drumming on its own. The shop owner told Petty that the monkey had played the drum and nothing had happened. But just as he finished speaking, a rat entered the shop and cut a rope that was tied to an old axe. The axe fell onto a statue of a knight holding a crossbow in his hand. An arrow was released from the crossbow, piercing the shop owner's stomach, killing him instantly. At that moment, Petty collapsed in terror, and anger overwhelmed him. He decided to set fire to the entire shop in order to get rid of the cursed monkey toy.
After many years, we learned that Petty had run away, leaving behind his wife Louisa and their twin sons, Bill and Hill, and no one knew where he had gone. At that time, we see Bill standing with his brother, and Hill tells us that Bill is only 3 minutes older than him, but he acts as if he is 3 years older. This is because Hill is calm and kind, while Bill is clearly mischievous and enjoys playing pranks on anyone. Moreover, Bill is always annoying Hill and bullying him. This behavior made Hill hate Bill because of his constant mistreatment, to the point that he imagined himself throwing a bowling ball at Bill's head while he was sleeping to get rid of him. Hill also tells us that whenever he asks his mother about his father, she tells him that his father disappeared suddenly without any reason. Later, Bill and Hill go to their old house to collect their father's belongings since they have grown up and are now his rightful heirs. There, they find the monkey toy inside a box with a note written on it asking the person who finds the toy to wind its key and see what happens. Bill then grabs the toy and winds the key to see what will happen. The monkey smiles and raises its hand, but suddenly stops moving. Bill gets annoyed and tells Hill that the toy does not work, then hands it to him.
The next day, Bill and Hill went out with their nanny, Annie. Hill had taken the monkey toy with him in the car, while Bill was discussing with Annie which place they should go to. Bill and Hill wanted to go to the amusement park, but Annie insisted on taking them to a Chinese restaurant, assuring them that they would love the food there. At the restaurant, Annie was fascinated by the chef as he prepared the food, performing impressive tricks with his knives. It was clear that there was mutual attraction between them, and the chef even made her a heart shape out of the food he was cooking. But suddenly, the monkey started drumming, and Hill heard the sound of the drum, even though the toy wasn't near him. At that very moment, the chef made a mistake while playing with the knives and accidentally struck Annie, decapitating her. Bill and Hill were horrified, and neither of them could understand what had just happened.
At Annie's funeral, Hill sat in sorrow, constantly wondering if the monkey toy had something to do with what had happened, since he had heard the sound of the drum moments before Annie's death. Afterwards, Hill tried to continue his life normally and went to school, taking the monkey toy with him. When his classmates saw the toy in his bag, they mocked him, and even Bill joined them, laughing at him as well. Bill didn't stop at mocking his brother. After class, he and one of his friends brought a large amount of bananas and threw them at Hill. This upset Hill greatly, and he returned home filled with rage. He then went to the monkey and told it that he knew it was behind Annie's death because he had heard the drum just before she died. Hill then asked a monkey to kill his brother Bill, as he had grown tired of his behavior and constant bullying. Afterwards, Hill wound up the toy's key, waiting to see what would happen, and the monkey began to drum. At that very moment, Bill entered the house and started talking to their mother, who was preparing food for them. But suddenly, her head exploded in a gruesome way, and she died instantly.
On the day of his mother's funeral, Hill tells us that the monkey kills people at its own will and does not take orders from anyone. Hill was confused, not knowing why the monkey chose to kill his mother instead of his brother. He also tells us that the doctors explained his mother's death as a result of a severe nervous seizure, which caused her brain cells to explode. They said her condition was extremely rare and did not happen often. Hell was overwhelmed with grief, knowing deep down that he was the reason for his mother's death. After the funeral, he took a cleaver and smashed the monkey toy, then said that after destroying it, he threw it into the trash bin to get rid of it.
Bill and Hill went to live with their Aunt Ida and Uncle Chip after their mother's death. Hill tells us that Uncle Chip never liked children at all, unlike their Aunt Ida, who was very happy to have them. When they arrived at the house, Bill was deeply sad over his mother's death, as he had loved her dearly. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound coming from the room. He went towards it and was shocked to find the monkey toy inside the closet. Bill became angry at Hill, thinking he was the one who brought the toy with them. But Hill replied that he hadn't, explaining that he had already destroyed the toy and thrown it away. And he also told him that the toy was cursed with a demonic spell that kills people. A few days later, Hill tells us that Uncle Chip was on a trip in the forest. While he was sleeping, a large herd of horses appeared and trampled him to death in a gruesome way, crushing his body completely until it was torn apart like meat. After that, Bill and Hill placed the toy back inside its box and threw it into a well, believing it was behind their Uncle Chip's death.
25 years later, Bill and Hill had grown up, and Hill tells us that he and his brother had gone their separate ways. He points out that he got married and had a child, whom he named Petty after his father. He explains that he is sad because he has been living away from his wife and son for years, and he only visits his son once a year, fearing that the curse of the toy might still be haunting him and could harm his wife and child. What made things worse was that he never told them the truth. As a result, his relationship with them was not good, and in their eyes, he was a failed and irresponsible father. Because of this, his wife divorced him and married another man to be able to raise her son. This left Hill deeply upset, as he could not tell them the truth, believing they would never believe him.
In addition, Hill began having nightmares in which his mother appeared with her face covered in blood, telling him that he was the reason for her death. He also dreamed that the monkey toy lifted him from his bed while he was asleep and threw him into the same well where he had thrown it 25 years earlier. In another dream, he saw the monkey toy trying to strike him with a cleaver to kill him. Hill then tells us that he finally realized that the monkey toy only killed bad people. It killed Annie, the nanny, because she did not truly love Hill and Bill as she pretended in front of their mother, and instead of taking them to the amusement park, she took them to the restaurant to meet the chef she loved and was secretly involved with. As for Louisa, Bill and Hill's mother, the toy killed her because she loved Bill more than Hill, and she had always ignored Hill and never cared about him at all. Regarding their Uncle Chip, the toy killed him because he did not love Bill and Hill and never wanted them to stay in his house.
At the same time, Ida, Bill and Hill's aunt, woke up to a strange noise inside the house. She grabbed her gun and walked towards the sound, discovering that it was coming from the basement. Ida went down to the basement and searched for the source of the noise, but found nothing. Suddenly, as she was climbing back up the stairs, the staircase collapsed beneath her, and she fell into a box filled with fishing tools. She screamed in pain as fishing hooks pierced into her face. She quickly rushed to the bathroom, pulling the hooks out of her skin while suffering in agony, then poured alcohol over her wounds to disinfect them. At that moment, she smelled gas filling the house. She went to the kitchen and leaned closer to the stove's flame to check where the leak was coming from. But suddenly, the stove burst into flames, and because she had alcohol on her face, the fire spread across it entirely. Ida screamed and ran outside the house, but she crashed into the wooden post holding the mailbox in front of the house and died instantly.
We return to Hill, who goes to pick up his son, Petey, from his ex-wife, since it is his annual visitation time. Petey is upset and angry with Hill for always being distant and never checking on him. Still, he agrees to go with his father to a hotel outside the city, where Hill has planned a trip with his son to explore the surrounding mountains. That night, Hill receives a phone call from his brother, Bill. He is shocked when Bill tells him that their aunt has died, and even more stunned when Bill admits that he feels the monkey toy is behind her death, because she died in what seemed like an accident, just like everyone else who had died when the toy was around. At that very moment, one of the hotel guests appears in front of Hill, takes off her clothes, and heads toward the swimming pool. Suddenly, an electrical short circuit occurs, electrifying the pool at the exact moment she jumps into the water. The instant she touches the water, she is electrocuted, and her body explodes. Terrified, Hill begins to connect his aunt's death with the girl's death and realizes that the monkey toy has returned once again, and that someone must have found it and activated it.
After that, Hill takes his son and goes to his late aunt's house. There he meets a woman named Barbara, who was appointed by the government to be in charge of the property after Ida's death. Barbara knows that Hill and his brother Bill are the heirs, so she tries to trick Hill into selling the house for a cheap price so she can profit from it. But Hill isn't interested in her offer. His main concern is finding out whether the monkey toy is still inside his aunt's house. Even worse, Barbara tells Hill that after his aunt's death, a series of mysterious deaths began occurring in the town, with people dying in strange accidents. This makes Hill certain that the monkey toy has returned and may even be hidden somewhere inside the house. He asks Barbara if she found a monkey-shaped toy among his aunt's belongings, but she replies that she doesn't remember. While they are searching the house, Barbara opens a door, only for a rifle behind it to fall and go off, firing a bullet that explodes her head right in front of Hill, leaving him horrified.
After that, the police arrived and took Hill's statement about the incident. At the same time, a man appeared outside the house, his face partially hidden by his hair, watching the ambulance as it carried Barbara's body. Later we learn that this man is Ricky, a childhood friend of both Bill and Hill from the days when they lived with their aunt. Now Ricky works as a private investigator, and he had been watching Hill ever since he arrived in town. He then goes to inform Bill that Hill is at his aunt's house, along with his son, Petey.
At this point, the story goes back in time to explain what happened. We learn that after Bill and his brother threw the monkey toy into the well, Bill later returned and went down inside to search for it. However, he couldn't find the toy, only the key that winds it. From then on, Bill kept searching for the toy for years, even hiring Ricky to help him find it. After their aunt passed away, Bill finally managed to locate the toy among her belongings. Bill activated the toy because he wanted it to kill his brother, Hill, believing that Hill was responsible for their mother's death. Bill was convinced that the toy had killed their mother because of Hill's influence. The problem was that Ricky became greedy once he discovered the toy's secret. He went to Bill's house and demanded to have it, but Bill refused to let him in, telling him he had already paid him for his help. Ricky replied that he was willing to return the money in exchange for the toy, but Bill refused and ordered him to leave and never show his face again. Enraged, Ricky went back to his own house. At Ricky's house, he took out his father's clothes – his father had been a police officer – and then grabbed his father's gun, showing that he intended to take revenge on Bill. But first, he went to Hill, threatened him with the gun, and forced him and his son Petey to come along to Bill's house. Ricky planned to use Petey to steal the monkey toy from inside Bill's home, telling him that he could get in through the dog flap on the back door. Hill refused at first, not wanting his son involved in this mess, but when Ricky threatened to kill him, Hill was forced to agree. Petey then crawled through the flap and entered the house, where he met his Uncle Bill. Petey introduced himself and explained what Ricky had done to him and his father. Bill took advantage of Petey's ignorance about the conflict between him and Hill and decided to trick him into winding the monkey toy, hoping that this time it would kill Hill. Bill lied to Petey, saying the toy had been inherited from his father and handed it to him to try. Petey wound the key, and the monkey began to beat the drums. At that moment, Hill noticed a beehive on the tree in front of the house. Suddenly, a swarm of bees burst out, breaking through the car's glass and swarming into Ricky's mouth, killing him instantly. Terrified, Hill rushed out of the car and ran toward the house to check on his son Petey, calling out for him. When Bill heard Hill's voice, he became furious, realizing that the monkey had chosen another victim. Bill tried to force Petey to wind up the toy again, but Petey grew nervous and refused. Bill shoved him aside and grabbed the toy himself, intending to start it. Strangely, the toy refused to work. Bill even grabbed the monkey's arm, trying to force it to beat the drums while shouting that it had to kill his brother now. But suddenly, the toy released a burst of energy that hurled him across the room. The monkey then began drumming furiously, faster and louder as if enraged by what Bill had done. At that moment, Bill looked out the window and saw a ball of fire falling on the city, setting it ablaze. Suddenly, the ceiling of the house collapsed and the corpses of the dead fell onto Bill. Terrified and horrified by what had just happened, he froze in fear. Then, everything suddenly went quiet.
At that moment, Hell arrived. Bill told him that he knew he was the reason their mother had died, and that's why he had sought out the monkey toy, to kill him in the same way their mother had died. Hill replied that he wouldn't blame him for what he had done, but he admitted that he never intended for their mother to die. Instead, he had wanted the monkey toy to kill him because Bill had always tormented him and made him miserable throughout his childhood. Hill then apologized to Bill and tried to make peace with him. Suddenly, however, the monkey began beating its drum. It was then revealed that Bill had positioned Hill in a specific spot inside the house, having set up a series of traps in advance, knowing that Hill would eventually come to visit him. The traps activated one after another, ultimately leading to a small cannon loaded with a bowling ball. The ball was launched and struck Bill in the head, decapitating him instantly. Hill stared in shock at the bowling ball that had killed his brother, realizing that Bill had been deceiving him until the very end, lying when he claimed he had forgiven him and that the past was behind them. And so, the monkey toy claimed Bill's life.
The next day, Hill is driving in his car with his son Petey. He tells him the story of the toy, explaining that it had haunted his father before, and then it started haunting him as well. Hill reveals that this was the reason he had stayed away from him all those years. He didn't want to put his son in danger because of the toy. But after everything that happened, Hill realizes that he must choose kindness and avoid harming others. Petey feels happy to finally understand the true reason his father kept his distance, and he realizes that his dad loves him and never hated him as he once thought. In the end, Hill and Petey agree to keep the toy and not get rid of it. Petey accepts his father's decision and the movie comes to a close.
If you liked the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel.